Dad!
Oh God, Dad!
Hey! What's that? Donkey!
My brother needs God and prayer.
Our father needs peace and quiet.
Dad can't come back from this, right?
Probably not.
I'm keeping our father alive. How is that wrong?
Oh my God! A woman your age should not be living at home with her father.
Where the hell were you guys the last 7 years? I will not be bamboozled.
No one is bamboozling you.
Choice of language.
This particular situation is not as uncommon as you might think.
What?
What about Dad?
We need to be realistic, Mona.
What about me?
Just get out of here, Mona. Go somewhere. Do something.
class hai.
You think Dad will find this funny?
Just so you know, the aunties are watching you smoke. You're literally insane. You're an insane person.
Wake up, Skinny Logan.
Hello and welcome to the 206. My name is Mark, coming to you from Seattle, Washington, and this is the Changing Directions interview series. My guest for this conversation is the one, the only Agam Darshi, who wrote, directed, and stars in Donkeyhead, an award-winning movie that is now available to watch on Netflix. Agam, welcome to the 206.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for being here. Now, you've been acting for some time now, but this is your first time directing a feature film. So how does it feel to have your movie, your story, complete and out in the world?
It feels so right in so many ways.
Right.
I feel like it's just, I feel like being a writer and a director really suits me and my personality. I love acting and I want to act as long as I can, you know, but that's always been kind of a funnier sort of personality for me to fill versus a writer and a director is just something that I understand. I love sharing ideas. I love talking about story. So I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity and that now it's going to be out there.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. Now, as I mentioned, your movie has been released on Netflix, which was made possible by Ava DuVernay's Air releasing. So honestly, I don't know if there's a better home for your movie than with Ava and Air. So congratulations on joining her family.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's been such an interesting road, and it's been kind of fascinating discovering the people who resonate with the film and who are championing the film. And I mean, Ava, I've been lucky enough to work with as an actor, and she was a director. And so to have had that experience and then to be able to like offer my film to them and for them to accept it and say, hey, we want to champion this and show it to the world, like it just, they do such good work, you know, and they have such purpose and meaning behind their company that it's been a really wonderful ride with them.
I think you really hit it right, the nail on the head there with how you described Air releasing. And also I get a real sense of community from everything that Ava does, including, you'd mentioned you worked with her before. You also worked with Deepa Mehta recently on Funny Boy, which was also picked up by Air and released previously on Netflix. So tell me about working with Deepa. And I saw she is also listed as a producer for your movie.
Yeah, I mean, Deepa was one of those filmmakers who I grew up watching, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I was always like, I'm going to work with her one day.
Right.
And I got really, I was invited to this brunch at the Whistler Film Festival many years ago, and Deepa was there. And I'm a little shy, you know, I'm not one of those people who's willing to go up and be like, hi,
Right.
you know, but there's this little voice in my head that was like, go up to Deepa Mehta and introduce yourself, even if you make a fool of yourself. And so I was like, all right. So I did. I went up and she was very lovely. And she's like, you know, I told her I was an actor, and she's like, well, send your material to my assistant. And so I did. And I didn't think anything about it. I didn't hear anything. And then a year later, I get an email out of the blue from Deepa saying, I have this project. Would you read for it? And I was like, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
And I loved the role. I loved the project. It was for Funny Boy. And then she hired me, and we developed a really wonderful relationship. She's become a mentor of sorts to me and has really inspired me and given me great advice along the way. And so when I was making my own film, I didn't even really tell her about it. She just kind of heard about it through other parties, and she was interested in it and wanted to read the script. And when she did, she loved it. And so then I had the courage to ask her, hey, would you be my EP for this? And she said yes. And so I feel like there's some pretty incredible women attached to this film. You know, Deepa and Ava, I do feel in some ways that I've come sort of full circle, because I worked with Deepa, and then like a year later, I was working with Ava. So it was, no, actually, that's not true. It was like 4 months later, I was working with Ava.
Oh, wow.
And then I got to make my own film. So it's been a lot of like, just like amazing peaks over the last few years. I feel very blessed.
Yeah, it definitely feels like one of those things where you've created opportunities for yourself by kind of going out of your comfort zone a little bit and kind of pushing your own boundaries. Is that something you feel as you know, kind of helped that process along?
Totally. Absolutely. I think that's something that I've always done, but I think my intention behind why I do that now, as I've gotten older, and after I've had children, to be quite honest, has probably been more solidified and has more meaning. Right. You know, I do want to push myself. I want to see how far I can go. It's actually really interesting because I worked with Deepa in Sri Lanka. A month later, I did something that I never thought I would ever do. I climbed Kilimanjaro. Oh, wow. And then like a month after that, I worked with Ava Duvernay.
Wow, amazing.
And then COVID happened, and then I was working on my own stuff, you know? And so gosh. It's been like, I love that feeling of being like this. I never thought I could do this. I never thought I would be here. And then just being like, well, what if I do this? Or what if, you know, and you mess up sometimes. You'll always mess up. You'll always fail, but then you just like try again.
Yeah, I think that's a real key life lesson that we can all learn is there are going to be failures, especially in the industry that you work in. Is, you know, how many times are doors shut and how many times are opportunities, you know, just washed away or not even being given. So that's amazing that you've got that mindset. Thank you for talking about that a moment. Now, getting back to the movie itself, which is why we're here, the story is centered on family, traditions, culture, and one of the cores I thought was the reality of sibling relationships. You know, everything feels very real rather than like a neatly buttoned up Hollywood type story, which I really enjoyed that about your movie. So why was this particular story about this family important for you to tell?
I mean, I love family dramas. I think family is such a fascinating petri dish to observe, and we're the most we're awful to our family and the most loving as well. And so it's wonderful to see those contrasts. I love films by filmmakers like Noah Baumbach and you know, Woody Allen, and well, Noah in particular, he does tons of family dramas that I grew up watching as well, and I never saw myself in them, you know, and so that was part of it. Was just like something selfish. I just wanted to see a brown family that I could relate to on screen, that weren't there for any particular cultural reasons, but were just there on screen to tell a family story. Right. So that was a big part of it for me.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a real key of what you just said, is it's a family who's from a different background than we normally see in Hollywood, like you're saying, but not highlighted as such. They're just existing as a family, and I love that. So I'm glad that's something that you mentioned. Thank you. Now, Agam, this interview series is called Changing Directions. So I want to acknowledge you simply for existing in this space as a director. You know, as we mentioned, that's, you know, it's a pretty big deal for you to be doing what you're doing and in the way that you've put yourself out there. So what type of impact do you want to make both in the industry and in the world as a filmmaker?
I am very interested and committed to telling stories about people of color, diverse stories. I grew up in a time when he just, and it still kind of is that way. It's changing for sure, and that's so exciting. But
Right.
I grew up never, ever, ever seeing myself on screen until I was like, and I don't know, I think I was like 8 or 9, and I saw a VJ on a network called Much Music. Her name was Monica Diol, and she was like super beautiful brown woman with like these short skirts, and everybody was like, every brown girl out there was like, oh my gosh, like I want to be her. And so not having anyone that you could look at and say, oh, that resonates, like that person is like me, really impacts you as growing up. And so I feel like I've spent a huge part of my career as an actor, as a producer. Like I started a film festival called VISAF, the Vancouver International South Asian Film Festival, many years ago. And making short films and stuff, just wanting to explore that and just add more color to the screen. Because I just think that very act is a political act, and something that is really important, that we can be seen, that we can be heard, that others can feel like they're seen and heard. And so that's what I want to do as a filmmaker. I want to tell stories. I mean, I'm open to telling all kinds of stories. I think we're all interconnected, but I am particularly really interested and curious about a lot of South Asian stories that have never been brought to light.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Now, in that context, you mentioned a couple directors that you admire previously, but more in the context of what we're talking about right now. Who are some of your inspirations? Like, are there people whose ideas and filmmaking styles may have been in your head while you're creating the movie?
Yeah, I watched The Farewell by Lulu Wang and really just fell in love with it. It deals with similar themes, and I really liked her style. I think it's a very beautiful film. I think it really resonates, and it's sad and it's happy. It's all of it, you know. And so I watched that film a lot because I think it's also really important as a filmmaker and as a director to be inspired by films that are within the same budget that you're working within. Because like, I don't have $50 million. I don't have 60 days to make a film, you know? And so like that kind of filmmaking is very different than what I'm capable of doing, you know? And so it was important for me to sort of like see, well, what other filmmakers are doing what I'm doing within the budget, and how do they do it in a really smart way? I think, I mean, when you look at films from Latin America, from Europe, like they have smaller budgets, but they're so smart about and imaginative about how they tell the story without feeling like everybody has to get like a close-up or everybody has to, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Jim Cummings as well. He did a film, gosh, I should know this.
I'm putting you on the spot today.
I know. He's done a lot of films where he acts, directs, and writes them. And he has budgets for like tiny, but super smart again about how he tells the story. You know, so yeah, I've just been those two filmmakers were big for me. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And I have to say that The Farewell is one of my favorite movies. I love that one. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Now, who inspires you that's not a filmmaker?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, the obvious answers, right? Like my mother.
right. If she ever watches this, she'll be, you know, she's like, you better say me.
Who's not a filmmaker? Let's see. I mean, like people, like notable people, or
just anybody. I mean, honestly, you're saying your mom is a wonderful answer. So, you know, or just anybody that inspires you in life.
Oh man, in some ways I feel like so much of life is inspiring, right? You see somebody who just does any job well, whether they're like, you know, I was just in Mexico for a month, and like if they're cooking like baking a tortilla, or if they're like, you know, sweeping a floor nicely. Like that's just, it's always amazing when people do things well that they love. Right now I'll just stick to mom. She worked really hard, and she's just really quite an incredible person. My sister as well, actually. She's I mean, just I love women who work super hard and who are tough, and I feel really lucky that I've been surrounded by women like that in my life.
I know, that's amazing. Thank you. Now, looking back on the process of making this film, going through film festivals, and then getting it out there for its release on Netflix, what's the number one thing you learned from that entire process that you'll now identify as something that you'll take with you as you create more projects in the future?
That's such a good question. I think having the whole picture in mind. Yeah. I think when I was going through this, I was really lucky. I connected with Karma Films. So it's headed by Anand Ramaya and Kelly Bullen. They were my producers. I produced it as well alongside with them. And they really mentored me in the process because they've made tons of films before, documentaries and features. But you don't know until you know, you know? And so now I feel like, having gone through the process of making Donkeyhead, I know the scope of what it is to make a film, where I would put my money, where I wouldn't put my money, you know, what's worth the time and the effort and what's not, you know? And so I think my next film, I just have a better and clearer picture of what it means from beginning to end. I know, having learned from this and having fought for it, like that more days for me is like, I would give up anything just to have like over 20 days to make a film. We had 23 days, which actually these days it sounds crazy, but it's a luxury because like films are made on like tiny, like for so much less. And I just know for myself, I like to have more time. So yeah, I don't know if that really answered your question, but it just gives me a better sense of the map and what it takes to get from point A to point Z, and how to also navigate the marketing. Cause I think that's a big part of it is post, you know, you kind of think as a filmmaker, you just want to get to like make your film, but then there's this huge world after that. And what does that look like? And how can you get your film to be seen by like millions of people? And where do you put that money if you have it? You know, which areas of marketing, and is it important for it to go to film festivals or not? You know?
No, that's great. So that's a great answer, especially, you know, just having completed your first film as a director. I'd imagine there's probably a world of things that were just every day, every step of the way, things that were just brand new for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was a huge learning curve. And yet at the same time, I was also pleasantly surprised to know that I knew a lot of it, you know, just having been acting for so long and been on set. It may not have been presented to me, but a lot of it was instinctual.
Now, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about as well is you lived in Canada for several years, and the movie is set in Canada. And it's, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it, the movie is very Canadian from the look of it and the settings and the you know, this, I guess, not quite stereotypical, but the fact that it's snow all over the place, it gives you that sense and feel. So it feels like this was kind of a love letter for you to the country that you called home for many years as well. Is that, am I kind of going the right direction there for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was. I think it is a love letter to Canada. Yeah, I mean, I grew up there and lived all over, and you know, yeah, there's something really special. And I was talking to my DP, Leo Haram, about it when we were first starting. I'm like, I really want to capture what that looks like when it's been snowing. And it's a very specific light, like that 4 p.m. light, 3 p.m. light, where it's like feels so golden, but it reflects on the snow. And I feel like if you live in the North, if you live somewhere where it snows like 6 months of the year, you understand what that the smell is, what that feels like, what that looks like. And he did such an excellent job at being able to capture that, you know. But there's something, yeah, I live in LA now, but there's a part of my soul that's always going to be like a Northern girl for sure.
No, absolutely. Thank you for touching on that for a moment. Well, Agam, we've talked about people that inspire you. You've talked about your movie. You know, you inspire me, and I'm sure your movie will inspire anyone who watches it. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for spending some time talking about your movie with me today.
Oh, thank you so much. This was really fun, and thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now, the movie is Donkeyhead. This is Agam Darshi. My name is Mark, and this is the 206 Changing Directions interview series. You can learn more about Agam and her movie by going to agamdarshi.com, and you can watch the movie right now on Netflix where available. Thank you so much. Be safe, and we'll see you next time.